I buy faulty electronic items on eBay, attempt to fix them and sell them for a profit. When I tell you we're on an unbelievable 12 in a row win streak, I still pinch myself. Previously, the highest win streak was 6, so we have now doubled that. Can we make it to 15 and make today's episode 13 wins in a row? Welcome, your lovely faces, back to episode number 86 of the series Profit or Loss. I paid a grand total of £160 for this PS5, but not everything is as it seems. What do you mean by that, Joey? Well, the PS5 was actually purchased as faulty no power. We can see that it's a 1200 series model, which is good. Fault no power, no response when you press the power or eject buttons. Fun fact, when I opened this console and just quickly tested it to make sure that it doesn't in fact power on, it did power on. It took me to the dashboard. I was able to plug in the Ethernet and go through an update process with the console. I was thinking, lovely. Nice, easy profit. Let's do some more basic tests. For one, turns out the disk drive doesn't actually work. It makes a horrible clunking noise, so that is definitely something we're going to have to fix. As well as the fact, if I go and try and turn it on now, I bet it works now. No. So we don't have... Oh, okay. It does work. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to show you what I was talking about then. Make sure that goes to a white light. It should beep at us and tell us that it wasn't turned off correctly before, because it did just randomly shut down. You can't actually see, but it's installing an update file, because I think that's around about the time that it crashed previously. So it's now gone to a white light. If I go over to the game scene, I've just plugged the Elgato HDMI in. There we go. Okay. So you can see that the console's on and working, right? I think the plan is to give it a little bit of a stress test. I want to confirm as well that the fan is indeed running, so it's not like a overheating issue. And the console is also relatively clean. I want to get this PlayStation to a point where I know it's going to crash, so therefore I can test. And there is one game that I can download that will definitely give this a run for its money, and that is Fortnite. I'll get that installed and I'll see what the situation is. Let me show you quickly the sound of the disc drive as well. So we'll put in Far Cry here. Listen to this. I'll go a little bit closer if I can. Not sounding healthy, and definitely doesn't pick up a disc. Luckily, it does eject, even though it comes up with the 3 beeps. So Lord only knows what's happened to that disk drive, and I really hope the daughter board for the disk drive is still in this one, because if this disk drive daughter board doesn't align with the main PCB, we could have some pairing issues there. Okay, so Fortnite has been launched on the console. Let's see if we can get past the main menu, because I've had an issue before with the PS5 where that's exactly where it did crash. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm very confused because it seems to be absolutely fine. So I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. It was definitely a bot lobby, but the PS5 is still on and it still works. So I'm very confused. The only thing I'm going to try and replicate is to reset the console and see what happens, because that's when it crashed out last time. So we go reset. Yeah, do a reset. I'm not going to be able to record this part though, unfortunately. I think what I might do is just keep it on the PlayStation 5 here and see if it turns off. And I think it's reset and just gone to a white light. And here we have it. It's completely reset. White light, no issues at all. It's so strange. I hate issues like this. I will do UART on this console to see if it gives me a hint of exactly why it's shutting down, because I reset the console previously, it shut down, but I've just played a whole game of Fortnite and there's no issues whatsoever. So I don't believe it to be like a power supply issue. It's not overheating. I can't replicate the fault. I'm in two minds about this. I want to take this apart because I want to see if this has a 69GG Southbridge. If it does, I do have a PS5 here that says waiting on 69GG Southbridge because we get a 0.01 amp draw. So I might end up just using this for parts. Doing that, however, will mean that we make a loss on the spreadsheet, unless that Southbridge does fix that console, in which case I can sell that and make a profit and end up just keeping this for parts. Let's take it apart and see what Southbridge it has. The good news, as always, is that it doesn't look like it's been opened before. These sticky bits still look quite sticky, but these revisions also do have separate power supplies to the 1000 and 1100 series. Now, the good news is this is a 033 board, so I do think it's going to be a 69GG Southbridge. Right, hear me out. On a little Google Docs spreadsheet that I've got EDM 033 is a 69GG for Southbridge. The model I have is a 1216A and not a 1216B. But again, let's pay attention to the 033 69GG. Here we have EDM 033. You must be thinking, it's a 69GG then, Joey, right? Incorrect. It's a 61 GG. I'm so confused. So I can't end up using this south bridge on the donor one that I have, which is quite annoying, obviously. Would it be handy to have a working 033 board about? Yeah, it would. It would be super handy, as well as, okay, I'm going to use the term working very loosely here, but I'll be able to get standby rails at least. And it would also be quite handy to have the power supply. What that does mean though is that I have to write off that 160 cost, right? I'm going to see if I get any information from UART that might swayed my mind in any way, shape or form. Just to confirm, the other option is to sell this back on eBay. I don't think I'll be able to get 160 for it, but I might be able to get 140 considering the fact that it does actually power on, so it would only be like a minimal loss. I've looked up the error codes through UART and we get exactly what I thought we would. Now I can't clean them and then try and force the error again because I can't force the shutdown, but the first one we get is general power failure, and then the other one in the log is the standard 009 one, which is unexpected power loss or shutdown failure. Now for the boards that I actually need to fix, I think it's pretty clear that I need the 69GG South Bridge, and I also need the Wi-Fi IC that belongs with the 69GG South Bridge. So I don't think, other than the power supply, I'm not going to actually need this board. My thoughts are I'm going to put this back together and sell it for around about £140. I have to be realistic in the sense that, yeah, I could change out the SSD controller, I could change out the SSDs themselves, I could change out the South Bridge, but this will take me such a long time because I can't replicate that power fault. I can't do it. It might actually be something as simple as changing out the power supply, but I don't want to sacrifice the boards and the chassis and the power supply and the other consoles I have because I really want to fix those. So I think my mind's made up. I think I'm going to sell it and just take the loss on this console, unfortunately, which means that we have to venture on to another console right now to see if we can maybe make a profit. If I have any hope in saving our win streak, it's going to be with this next item. Let's move on to item number 2. I paid a nice, healthy, glorious £160 for this faulty PlayStation 5. And no, it's not the same one we've just looked at, thankfully. This one is a 1116A. It says that the warranty seal has been opened. It powers on, however, there is no display. So I'm really lining this one up for a profit. There's only been one PS5 in the history of JDT that had no display that I wasn't able to fix. That puts us at a good rate for this. On the other hand, it's been opened before. So who knows what monstrosity we're going to come across. Let us do some verification to just make sure that it actually powers on. It does. We get a beep. That's good. I've plugged in the HDMI cable as well. Can we indeed verify that we do not get a display? Let's have a look. That's going to go back to normal, isn't it? Any second now. Lord above. There we go. We always have to do it on the second time. So on the second one, does it come up with an image? Doesn't look like it, because usually it would say HDMI 1 here if it was going to work. So that is indeed no display. Looking at it though, it's gone to a lovely jubbly white light. So that is really good news. Turn the console off. Swift look here at the HDMI port. On the face of it, looks alright, doesn't it? Doesn't look to be any loose pins from what I can see, or any cross pins or anything like that. And it's definitely not mangled. So maybe it's something else. One thing is that it's rather dusty, but not like thick dust, just like a loose dust. All the screws look like they're in the right places as well. You can see that the fan's quite dusty. Inside is pretty dusty as well, so it's going to need a clean overall. SSD, 1, 2, 3. No. How are we looking? Definitely been opened from a board perspective because the stickers have come off there. So someone's been deeper already. Are we going to come across another case of somebody's just tried to do the HDMI port and not quite soldered the pins of the HDMI port down to the board properly? That's what I saw recently with one of these anyway. Okay, from the face of it, does it look like this has been replaced before? I think so. I'm going to say yes. And they've even kept this bit on, which doesn't need to stay on, by the way. That's not really doing much at the moment. No liquid metal spill, which is very nice. And because we're going to be cleaning this, the chassis itself, and getting rid of all the dust, etc., I will get the liquid metal off the chassis as well. Move this over to the side. And let's head on over to the scope to sort this out. Oh, what's that? Oh, just a bit of something. Let's head north and see how this looks. Diode is okay, cap is okay, resistor's okay, and alright, solder paste. I have a video on the channel recently of pretty much the exact same thing, solder paste used instead of actual wired solder, and the job looked quite similar to this, and I bet those pins aren't attached to the board. What do we think? Yeah, look, every single one. Okay. So I'm quite lucky here, if I'm going to be honest with you, because they're supposedly, quote unquote, relatively easy fixes, because it's just a case of putting a HDMI port on, and it's the same story with the back as previous as well. I mean, yes, it looks like the solder's come through, If I tilt the board up, it doesn't look like the strongest, you know? It's more so just come through the board, but not formed that dome shape around the ground plane. These two have. There's more so a bit of a dome shape after the solder's come through, but both of these over here just look like they've come straight through. So it's just not soldered properly. And I said the same thing that I said before. The person who's done this, don't get yourself down. You're so close to actually doing the job correctly, you know? Saying this, I could do this swap and there's something else wrong with the board. You never know when it comes to eBay, unfortunately. Let's put our fume extractor on. Our soldering iron is hot off the press, ready to go. Hot air station, we're going for 480 degrees Celsius with a 99% airflow on our Atten ST862D. So we just heat from the top. Pretty standard procedure, and this is going to fall off. Again, I'm leveraging the board here. So it's bouncing up and down because there's enough clearance between the port and the mat. Deja vu with the other port. And this is going to fall off pretty easily because, again, this is solder paste. It actually smells like the same solder paste that I have, which is the mechanic solder paste. There we go. Just like that. See how that's forming now? It's actually creating a stronger bond now. This will come out any second. There it is. Just drops off like that. And there we go. That port is okay, but I am going to use my own supply again. I didn't clear this solder out last time, but I'm going to do it now because I believe that if it is that mechanic solder paste, it's actually melting at a much lower temperature than what leaded would. So let's just put our heat back on here. Not that it's going to make a massive difference, to be honest, but any excuse to use the solder sucker, I think, perhaps, is where I'm going with this. We have to be super careful here not to suck up the diode, but just practice and precision. There we go. Be quick to turn that board over and make it comfortable for you to do the job. That solder looks okay, look. There's no point in taking the solder out of the ground holes if we don't take it off the pads as well, wick it off. And again, that should come off really, really easy with just a little bit of a wick. And when you do the HDMI ports, you also have to be careful not to take up that cap. There we go. Little clean. The board isn't as hot now, so it's a little bit more difficult to clean, but still not too bad. Looking bosh. And then what we do is we grab our flux and just put loads of it on the board. Grab our soldering iron, grab our leaded solder, and we simply just fill up those ground holes until I usually see that solder just sink through. It's my rule of thumb. Sometimes that's not the case. There we go, that one's gone straight through. Nice. Over here. So when I load it up, you can see the blob of solder just hanging off the iron to the left. Sometimes I wait for that to actually just sink through like that, because it means it's gone all the way through the board. And it just means that we've got enough solder there. And then we do hopefully one swoop. Is that one swoop? It is. Nice. Clean up the flux. And here we've got a little bit of staining on the copper PCB, you see here. And what's happened here is because I put too much flux, that flux has got hot and it stained the copper. Does it matter? Not in the slightest. But if you're someone who has a little bit of OCD, you might not like it. And that is ready for a brand new port. And we get a tin. So, as always, a good amount of flux. Not too much, not too little. Just put it over the pins. There we go. Soldering iron. A little bit of leaded on the end. And there we go. One swoop. Got lucky that time. It's not always usually like that. Sometimes you can have bridges that you need to sort. And on most occasions, those bridges will sort themselves out when you go to put the port on the actual board. There we go. That looks good. Now hangeth over the edge of the board. Everything is prepped and ready. We just need to put a drop of flux on. So a drop here. Just cover these pads. Go over the ground holes. Maybe just scoop away a tiny bit of that. I wouldn't recommend doing this in shorts like I do, because sometimes the solder can drip through and go on your leg. It's not nice. So we go again, 480 degrees Celsius, airflow speed 99%. Just wave that underneath the bottom and we'll see all of this solder molten in a sec. And because it's leaded again, it shouldn't take too long. There we go, just like that. And look at it all dancing, nice and jiggly. And then we just go ahead and put the port on. And again, keep moving it back and forth because we don't want to singe the plastic underneath. And then once it's up to temperature, we should see that solder come through the ground holes and hug the legs of the port. Because again, the port is going to be cold, or just, let's say, room temperature. And now we're just going to move it about. So if I move this port about, back and forth, side to side, a little bit of a jiggle, keep moving that air around. I'm actually going to be a little bit crafty here. And just put a little bit of solder in the legs, additionally, on that side and this side. Just to give it that extra security from above. Any second now, we just need to get in a decent position, which I think it is there. Push down ever so slightly. Not much force. Come off the heat. Keep holding, keep holding. And now we should be good to go. We do need to check the pins because the way I have the microscope at the moment doesn't allow me to see. So I just kind of guesstimate. That looks good to me, but I won't know until I get a little bit closer up. And let's just quickly clean whilst this flux is nice and hot on the board. Again, makes it 10 times easier to clean up. Look at that. So much easier. If we let this board cool down, use IPA, etc., it just make a mess. Whereas because the flux is nice and warm, super easy to clean. Now we can go a little bit of IPA just here. Okay. I think that's going to look good. Let's check. A little bit of fluff here. Nothing we can't sort out, but yeah, all on the pads, looking good. Big solder balls on the back. Yep. Ever so quickly, just clean these up, round them off, make them look a bit more presentable. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to use an iron that I've not used in a while, and that is Big Bertha. And this should do our job relatively easily. There we go. Look at that. Same over here as well. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Clear out the flux. Using an iron head there, an iron tip with a bigger head, makes this job a lot easier because this bigger thermal transfer on the ground pads. And again, just OCD, giving this a clean. Don't necessarily need to go as in-depth as this. Coming with IPA. That's the back of the port. Right there. Looking cushy. Front of the port, also looking cushy. We can see the solder has come all the way through on the ground holes, and we did add some more above just to make sure it was nice and secure, but it's going all the way through the board. Now we just need to quickly check and make sure that all of these are soldered on correctly and that I haven't just messed them up. I used to go over these pins and then I pretty much decided that this was good enough because all of these are solid. And again, I'd say 8 times out of 10 with the PS5. The cause of these breaking is the user, not the PS5. But sometimes the solder from the factory for the PS5 on the HDMI ports can just come quite brittle and loose. Bare basics back together. I've put the heat shield on, but I haven't got any screws in just yet. And I've plugged the HDMI cable in and the power, and I'm recording on this little camera here as well to see what our situation is. Does it still power on? It does. And now in a second, I have to wait for it to turn on a little bit. Let's go HDMI 1, see what happens. You see me in the reflection. Hello. Come on. This won't work this time. It should work next time if it's going to work. Here we go. It's gone to a white light. Does it work? Does it say HDMI 1? It does. It's going to work. Yeah, let's go. Let's give that port a nice wiggle, which we are. You can see, I don't know if you can see from the top down, and in front it's not doing anything, so that's really, really good as well. That's why I don't like to use an abundance of flux. And put back together, here is the PlayStation 5. All good and working. I've also put a disc in so we can see Far Cry 6 is installing. The disk drive works, thank goodness. Okay, we have the latest version of the system software anyway. That's going to be a case of just wrapping it up and selling it. Good news as well is that I've sold the faulty PlayStation 5, so I'm going to have accurate pricing for that also. Let's do the job. Head on over to Sally's Spectacular spreadsheet and find out if this is another win, which I think it is. Pause the video. Don't actually pause it. I'm just saying pause because I don't know how I haven't seen this until now. And you've probably seen it on the edit when I was inspecting the HDMI port. And for those who did, well done. Do you know how far I got with this? I was taking pictures ready to sell it because I've tested everything and everything seems to be working fine. But I missed this. Look at it. How? How did I miss that? Look at this USB port. That is not meant to look like that. What an absolute moron. I now have to take this apart, remove my own warranty sticker, and replace that USB port. So, again, I'm not going to bore you with taking this apart because we've done that already. But I will show you how I do the USB ports on these consoles. Very funny. All right, so we're back where we started. I've taken off the liquid metal, and the one that I need to replace is this port right here. I don't actually have that much clearance here, if I'm honest. So I've put a block underneath. So therefore I now have clearance so I can just take this port off. We're going to use the same method. So it'll be 480 degrees Celsius, airflow speed, a nice cushy 99%. So the same method that I use on the HDMI port is the same method that I do with a USB port. We should see it just fall out. See the factory flux burning away? And this will eventually, just like that, fall out. Lovely. Now, whilst the board is hot, I'm going to put it down onto the table now and use the solder sucker. Now, we have to be super careful because you see this little cap here and we have a filter here. So we do have to be cautious. Nonetheless, I trust this solder sucker. Should I trust it is the question. All right, let's try this ground hole here. Good. All right, that looks okay to me. We've done a good job. And again, we don't need to clean these bits of flux off This is factory flux. We can just leave it. But it looks better, in my opinion. I don't have any brand new ports either. We're going to opt for a donor. I don't actually know, believe it or not, if I've done a USB port on the channel before. There we go. Looking nice and clean. The other option there, and I've seen a lot of people do this, is to wick these holes, but you need to put lead in and then it becomes a huge mess. Excessive heat on the board, whereas I just like to use the hot air gun, come in with a solder sucker, just be very, very careful and take it all out. And that was all unleaded, by the way. I've just used the exact same method here to take out a port from another PS5. And this one, as you can see, is a lot better condition. So I'm just using my thumb here because the port is relatively cool to push it onto the board and make sure it's flat. And I'm just going to apply a tiny bit of flux here, holding that, and just grab big B and solidify that in place. There we go. And now I can remove my hand because we've soldered that to the board. And we just need to flux it up. So flux there, there, and there. And now we can pile on the solder. I'm using a bigger tip here for much better heat transfer. And now I'm going to change my tip. In fact, just clear some of this flux that I've got here. The board's gone a little bit cold. Just going to apply some flux there. Actually need to sort out this ground hole. There we go. And then we can do all of the data and PowerPoints, these little ones, easier with more accuracy without risking hitting that little cap there. Is the main thing. There we go. Again, nice clean. I'm actually going to use a clean toothbrush here as well, just to get in between all the nitty-gritty places. Let's check that, shall we? Yeah, all looks good. Except for that one looks a bit domey, doesn't it? This one. Or should I say like a pyramid? A bit spiky. I think that's ground. Yeah, it is. There we go. Another look. Beautiful. Okay. Now let's test this after setting up the console again. We go over to storage. So this is recognizing best USB device. It says 120 gig there. This isn't the port that was faulty. It's this one that was next to it. But just to show in real time, it is this one. So this is the port that we fixed. Put that in. And if it pops up with 120 gig, it means that it's fixed. There we go. It recognizes the data. Let's go. Format. Oh, it's saying I can't do it because, a capacity of 250 gig minimum is needed. That's fine. It recognizes the device and that is all working. But I will say this isn't an excuse, by the way. But it does say on the listing that the port's condition is all good. Definitely wasn't the case with the USB. Let's head on over to Sally's spectacular spreadsheet to work out today's profit. Here we have our total cost for today. And I'm right in thinking that they were both 160. So that's £320 in cost. Parts, we had a HDMI port. To be on the safe side, instead of 50p, we'll say £1. Now, our sale price, I've already sold for £130 the faulty console. That's gone. I sold that privately to Phil, aka the coder. I recently sold a PS5 for £230 plus postage. It sold pretty quickly. I'm going to keep the same price, even though I think I might be able to get a little bit more for it. I'll go £230 plus the £130 for the faulty one, which I'm actually going to say £140 because I sold it privately. There would be no eBay fees, and eBay fees take 9%. So I'm going to put it on here as £140, and then it should minus the fees accordingly. £140 plus £230 is £370, giving us a total profit in today's episode of £15.70. That is cutting it very close. Even if I was to put this at £360, I'm still only just making a profit of £6.60. And that's with the lower price value of the disc edition PS5. So we still have definitely made a profit, but only just today. So let's go £15.70. And to confirm, that does make it 13 wins in a row so far. Can we make 15? Bringing our total profit for the series up to £750.18. That one was a bit of a roller coaster because of me being dumb, but thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't seen all of these episodes, I'll leave a playlist up here so that you can start from episode number 1. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.